So welcome to this little corner of the World Storytelling Cafe, where we are going to be sharing some fun family stories this evening. So gather everybody in the family around and let's see what stories we are going to have. Now, as a storyteller, the most important person in the event you are about to experience is you. There is absolutely no way I can do what I'm about to do without you. Literally, if you weren't here right now, I would just be talking to myself. And we all know that way leads to white coats and hairy palms. So it is absolutely vital that I have you with me. And I guess I kind of need you for two reasons. One, because your ears are what makes a story work. Okay, yes, I have the story up here and it kind of fires all this electricity inside here, which moves various muscles, which makes all of the air wobble into that little mechanical device I have sitting on my ledge there, which turns it into other electrical impulses that zip through loads of wires to loads of different places in the world, including the very machine that's in front of you right now, where those same electrical signals are put into a couple of little magnetic pulsing machines to the size of your device or in your ears, depending on what you're listening through, which then make a little hammer inside your body wobble and make more electrical impulses go through your body and into your brain, so that the same thought that I'm having here ends up in your head, but with your own color and shapes and sounds. And gosh, isn't the body amazing? Isn't technology amazing? And I've kind of gone off on a massive tangent, haven't I? Where was I? Oh yeah, so that is why you are absolutely important. The only thing that can make storytelling work is you folks there on the other side to hear it. But for me, it's extra important because I literally have no idea what story to tell without you here to help me choose. Because let's face it, as a storyteller, I want to make sure that you folks are hearing a story that you are absolutely going to love. And I can only do that if I know what kind of story you are absolutely going to love. And if you are at the World Storytelling Cafe right now, please make sure that you have clicked the button to come into the Zoom room, because that way you can join me here and you can help me to choose a story. If you're watching on the worldstorytellingcafe.com website or on YouTube, if you fancy doing that, then that's absolutely great too. You can certainly enjoy the story, but you will get the best experience by being here in the cafe and able to help me choose the tale. At the moment, I can see a few faces, and we're going to hold it just for a little while to see if anybody else is able to join us, ready to choose a story. In fact, how about while we're waiting, I tell you a story. Does that sound fair? Yeah, I'm getting smiles and thumbs up from everybody who's already here in the cafe. So basically, I'm going to tell you a story just to keep things moving along while we wait for everybody else to join us here in the cafe room and in the cafe Zoom room to help us choose a story that you're all really going to love. To choose a story to start with, though, there is another storyteller here at the cafe who you may have already met. His name is Baden Prince. I met him at Glastonbury last year, and there's a story I told there that he told me he really loved, and I know he would really love to hear it again. So I'm going to share this mainly for Baden, but hopefully the rest of you will enjoy it too. And if you've just tuned in, please do enjoy this story. But remember, head to the worldstorytellingcafe.com, click on the little button to join us in the Zoom room, and you can help us choose a story that you are really, really going to love. In the meantime, though, I will tell you the story of a chap called Andrew Coffrey. Andrew Coffrey was a storyteller. A little bit like me, a little bit like Baden, a little bit like some of the other faces I can see. Probably like you as well. I imagine you've told a few stories, haven't you? Up at the dinner table or around the water cooler or in the playground or wherever it is that you like to talk to your friends. You've probably told a story. Andrew Coffrey, though, he was a storyteller who absolutely loved telling stories about Andrew Coffey. He really, really loved telling stories about himself. And the thing that you need to know about Andrew Coffey's stories is that Andrew Coffey's stories would go on and 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 oh, hello, I can just see that my music teacher's joined. She can see that I'm here using one of the vocal techniques that she taught me. On and 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 on until everybody who was listening to his stories had fallen asleep. In fact, pretty much everybody who listened to Andrew Coffey's stories would fall asleep, just like I see some of you have. And there was one person called David Patrick who was listening to Andrew Coffey's stories in the pub over a bowl of soup. And he fell asleep and landed with his face in his soup. Okay, now I can see a few giggles there. I can see Bella, my music teacher's daughter, giggling at that. But, well, you're going to feel really guilty now, because when he landed with his face in the soup, it went up his nose, it covered up his mouth, and he died. David Patrick died drowning in his soup after listening to one of Andrew Coffey's stories. Yeah, doesn't sound so happy now, does it? And of course, when Andrew Coffey found out that David Patrick had died listening to one of his stories, it made him feel brilliant. Oh, he was so amazed. He had a superpower. He could kill people by telling them stories. Oh, he was so impressed. He loved telling people the story of how he managed to kill someone by telling them a story. Oh, he was so proud of that one. Anyway, at the start of this particular story that I'm about to tell you, which is the story that I think I told Baden. Oh, by the way, if you've just tuned in, you're still catching up with everybody else and you're watching this through the YouTube feed on worldstorytellingcafe.com, please make sure you click the link to join us in the Zoom cafe, like all of the faces I can see in front of me, because once I get to the end of this story, I'm going to be telling another one that you will get to help choose, and we can make sure that's a story you're definitely going to love. But this is a story that Baden Prince loved. And it's about that chap, Andrew Coffey, who killed David Patrick by telling him a story and making him drown in his soup. And at the start of this story, Andrew Coffey had just finished telling his stories in the pub. So pretty much every single person in the pub had keeled over and fallen asleep. So Andrew decided it was probably time to head home. And to head home, he had to leave the pub. And there was a lovely full moon shining in the sky to light his way home. His way home was through the forest, a straight line through the forest. It was just one path, straight line through the forest. Real easy. Walk through there, get to his home. He'd be fine. And as he started walking through the forest, he suddenly heard a sound behind him that went a bit like tap, tap, tap. So naturally, Andrew looked around, but he couldn't see anything there. So he shrugged and he kept on going for a bit. And then he heard tap, tap, tap. So this time, Andrew went and he hid behind a tree and he looked around, but still he couldn't see anything. But that was when Andrew noticed he was behind a very special tree. You see, this forest was a lovely green forest, mostly beech trees. But this particular tree that Andrew had hidden behind, it was a silver birch tree. It was the only silver birch tree in this entire forest. A nice big thick one, which was also pretty unusual for silver birch trees. And that made Andrew feel really lucky. This had to be a good evening if he would suddenly end up behind this really lucky tree, the only silver birch tree, a nice big silver birch tree there in this green forest. So, feeling a bit G'd up, he got back onto the path and kept on walking down that long straight line through the forest. And as he was walking, he suddenly heard tap, tap, tap. He looked around and he saw nothing. So he shrugged and he kept on going. He's feeling a little bit nervous now, so he picked up his pace. In fact, he started to run. He ran in a long straight line down that path through the forest until he could not run anymore. And when he finally calmed down and got his nerves back, he heard tap, tap, tap. So he went and jumped behind the only silver birch tree in the forest and looked round and saw nothing. Oh, but hold on a minute. How many silver birch trees are in this forest? Yeah, everybody's putting up one finger. That's right. There's one silver birch tree in this forest. How many times had Andrew been behind it now? Yeah, I'm seeing people putting two fingers up. But had Andrew gone in a big circle then? Some people nodding, but some people shaking their head. It's confusing, isn't it? Because he'd been running in a straight line down a long, straight path through the forest. Andrew was now rather confused and a little bit scared as he got back onto the path, and he kept on walking, and he heard behind him tap, tap, tap. Well, this time Andrew didn't bother to look. He just ran in a long straight line down that path through the forest until he could not run anymore. And when he finally slowed down, he heard tap, tap, tap. So he went and jumped behind the only silver birch tree in the forest, and he looked round and he saw nothing. But hang about. How many silver birch trees are in this forest? And how many times had he hidden behind it now? Yeah, you folks are incredibly good at keeping count. 3 times he'd hidden behind that tree, but it was the only one. Had he been walking in circles? Well, it maybe felt like that, but he'd been running in a straight line, a long straight line down this one straight path through the forest. Andrew was beginning to get terrified. He knew he needed some help, and he looked around to see if there was anyone in the forest who might be able to help him. And just then, he noticed a cottage through the trees that had lights on inside, so there was clearly someone home. Andrew thought he would rush to that cottage and hopefully get someone there to help him. He'd tell them the story of what had been going on in the forest, and they would be able to help him calm down, maybe give him a drink and get some rest for the night. So over he went to the cottage and he knocked on the door. Oh, there's a storytelling tradition that's really, really important. And I know we are online at the moment, but it's still just as important, okay? Whenever a storyteller says, knocked on the door, everybody needs to hold up their hands like this and go, knock, knock, knock. Okay, just like that. Okay, but let's see if we can all manage it at the same time. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. There was a knock at the door. Excellent. And the door opened up, but there didn't seem to be anyone on the other side. So Andrew went into the cottage in exactly the same way that I'm sure there are people arriving in the Zoom cafe right now. That's excellent. If you're watching this on worldstorytellingcafe.com or on YouTube, do exactly what they're doing. Hit the little button to join us in the Zoom cafe and you can help us choose the stories. As Andrew entered that little cottage, all he could see were the lights that were on, a nice little fire in the fireplace. There was a rocking chair and there was a nice comfy armchair. But there was no one there. He called out, Hello? But there was no response. So Andrew figured that he might as well sit down and make himself comfy. After all, if they had all of the lights on and a fire burning, they probably weren't very far away. So he would just sit down there in that nice comfy armchair and wait for whoever owned the cottage to come home. Then he could tell them the story of the weird things going on in the trees, and they could calm him down, give him a drink and help him get some rest for the night. So there he sat and he waited. And he waited. And he waited. Then suddenly, he waited some more. Just like we're doing in the Zoom room, really, for all those of you who are still watching at worldstorytellingcafe.com or YouTube, and we're waiting for you to click the little button that lets you hear into the Zoom room, really. And after he'd been waiting for some time, Andrew began to get a little bit thirsty. And he thought, whoever owned this cottage, they wouldn't mind if he just went into the kitchen and helped himself to the drink. I mean, if it was your home and someone had walked into your home because you'd left the door unlocked, you'd expect them to go to the kitchen and help themselves to a drink, wouldn't you? Yeah, I can see some friendly faces out here in the Zoom cafe. Oh, some people not so sure. Well, Andrew thought whoever owned this cafe, if they were going to leave the fire burning, they were kind of asking for it, really. So he went to get up and found he couldn't. It was as if his legs had just gone dead. He was sort of stuck to that armchair. And as he wondered what was going on, the rocking chair on the other side of the room began to rock backwards and forwards. And as Andrew watched, a ghost appeared in that chair. The ghost of David Patrick. That man who, if you've been here since the beginning, you'll remember, had drowned in his soup after listening to one of Andrew Coffrey's stories. The ghost of that man was now sitting in that rocking chair, rocking forwards and backwards and fixing Andrew with a stare and saying, Andrew Coffrey, Andrew Coffrey, tell me a story. Now, Andrew didn't really want to tell a story right in that second. In fact, to be completely honest, all the stories had just totally gone out of his head. He really wasn't in the mood. So he said to David, it's very nice to see you again, David, but well, the thing is, I was just on my way home, really. I could probably come back in a few days, maybe tell you a story then, if that's okay. But the ghost of David Patrick rocked backwards and forwards and fixed Andrew with that stare and said, Andrew Coffrey, Andrew Coffrey, tell me a story. And Andrew realized he had absolutely no choice but to tell David Patrick a story. But the thing was, he'd been telling the truth. All of the stories had pretty much gone completely out of his head. The only thing he could actually think of telling was the story he'd been planning to tell whoever lived in the cottage, which was his journey to the cottage. So that was the story he told. It went a bit like this. So I'd just finished telling stories in the pub, right? And so I decided it was time to go home. And I left the pub, and there was a nice full moon shining in the sky to light my way home. And I had to go down the long, straight path through the forest. And as I started walking down that path, I suddenly heard footsteps behind me. They were going tap, tap, tap. So I looked around and I saw nothing. So I kept on walking, shrugging my shoulders, and then I heard tap, tap, tap. So I jumped and hid behind the only silver birch tree in the forest, and I looked around and I saw nothing. So I got a bit confused, but I kept on walking. And then I heard behind me, tap, tap, tap. I looked around and I saw nothing. So this time I ran. I started to run in a long straight line down that path through the forest until I could not run anymore. When I had to slow down, I heard behind me, tap, tap, tap. So I jumped behind the only silver birch tree in the forest, and I looked round and I saw nothing. But then I thought, hang about, how many silver birch trees in the forest? How many times had I hidden behind it now? Now I was beginning to get rather uneasy. I got back onto the path. I kept on walking, and then I heard tap, tap. I didn't bother to look this time. I just ran in a long straight line down the path through the forest until I could not run anymore. When I finally had to slow down, I heard tap, tap, tap. So I went and jumped behind the only silver birch tree in the forest, and I looked around and I saw nothing. But then I thought, hang about, how many silver birch trees in the forest? How many times had I hidden behind it now? Now I was beginning to panic, and I looked around to see if there was anyone who might be able to help. And I noticed a little cottage with lights inside. So I went over and I, ready everyone, knocked on the door, and it opened up all by itself. I looked in, and there was a nice comfy armchair and a rocking chair, and there was a fire and loads of lights on, but there was no one home. And I thought, well, if they'd left the lights on, they couldn't be far away. So I went and sat down in that nice comfy armchair, and I waited for a long time. And then, in fact, I began to get a bit thirsty. And I thought, well, you know, whoever's here, they're probably not going to mind if I just go in and get a drink. You know, they're not like those folks up in Scotland. So I'll tell you what, I'll just go and get myself a drink. And I went to move, and I found I couldn't. My legs weren't working. And that was when you appeared. So when Andrew had finished telling his story, the ghost of David Patrick walked forwards and backwards and fixed Andrew with that stare and said, Andrew Coffrey, Andrew Coffrey, tell me the story again. And Andrew said, surely you don't want to have exactly the same story again, Andrew. I mean, David, I'm getting all confused now. What's going on? Yeah, you don't want to have the same story again, do you, really? I mean, I know lots of other stories. Granted, I can't think of them right now, but if you just let me go home and have a bit of sleep, I'll come back tomorrow and I'll tell you a different story then, yeah? But the ghost of David Patrick rocked forwards and backwards and fixed Andrew with that stare and said, Andrew Coffrey, Andrew Coffrey, tell me the story again. And Andrew realized he had no choice but to tell exactly the same story again. Okay, so I just finished telling stories at the pub and it was really dark. So I went outside and there was a full moon shining and I thought that would light the way. So I started walking down through the forest. It was long and straight. And as I was walking, I heard tap, tap, tap. I looked around and saw nothing. So I kept on walking. I heard tap, tap, tap. So I jumped behind the only silver birch tree in the forest. So I looked around and I saw nothing. So I kept on walking. I heard tap, tap, tap. I ran into past it, so I couldn't run anymore. And then I heard tap, tap, tap. So I jumped behind the only silver birch tree and I looked around and I saw nothing. But then I thought, oh, I'm the same silver tree. So I started walking down the forest. I heard tap, tap, tap. I could not run anymore. And then I said tap, tap, tap. So I jumped behind the only silver tree in the forest. I looked around and I saw nothing. But then I thought, it's the same silver tree. So I looked around and I thought, I need help. I saw a cottage. I went over and knocked on the door. Caught you out there, didn't I? And then the door opened up and walked in. There were two chairs. I sat down in one. I couldn't get up, and that was when you appeared. After Andrew had finished telling his story for the second time, the ghost of David Patrick rocked backwards and forwards and fixed Andrew with that stare and said, Andrew Coffrey, Andrew Coffrey, tell me the story again. And Andrew said, surely you don't want to have exactly the same story again, David. I mean, look, I tell you what, I've got loads of books on my bookshelves back at home. I could probably get one of them, and I'll tell you one of those stories. You know, I could go and I could do that right now. Just please let me go home. But the ghost of David Patrick rocked forwards and backwards and fixed Andrew with that stare and said, Andrew Coffrey, tell me the story again. And Andrew realized he had no choice but to tell exactly the same story again. So hey! You appeared. And after Andrew had finished telling his story for the third time, the ghost of David Patrick rocked forwards and backwards and fixed Andrew with that stare and said, Andrew Coffrey, tell me the story again. Andrew Coffrey must have told exactly the same story probably close to 100 times that night. And at the end of every single time, the ghost of David Patrick rocked forwards and backwards and fixed him with that stare and said, Andrew Coffrey, tell me the story again. God, when you guys do it, it looks absolutely terrifying. Well, eventually, Andrew couldn't take it anymore. He just burst into tears and he said, oh, please don't ask me to tell it again. I just want to go home. I promise I'll never tell any other story. Just please let me go home. And when he opened his eyes, the ghost was gone. The chair, the rocking chair, was gone. In fact, the armchair was gone as well. Andrew wasn't sitting down anymore. He was standing up. But he wasn't in the cottage. He wasn't even in the forest. He was standing up right outside his own front door. And the following day, when Andrew went back to the pub, he didn't tell stories to anyone. He just went straight up to the counter, got himself some beer and some chips, and started eating all by himself. And a few of the other people in the pub, they thought this was a little bit weird. Usually Andrew would be telling them stories, and some of the nicer ones who were there began to wonder if maybe Andrew was all right. Maybe something bad had happened to him. So one or two of them went over to him and said, you know, are you all right? And Andrew just replied to all of them, oh yeah, good. And after a while, Andrew suddenly found himself getting in, well, normal conversations with people. Just normal conversations with everybody there in the Zoom room. I mean the pub. Sorry, that I don't know why that happened. But if you're watching this at worldstorytellingcafe.com or on YouTube, please know that we do have a Zoom room right now that you can join by clicking the link on worldstorytellingcafe.com/cafe, and then you'll be able to join us here to help us choose the next story, which will make sure we guarantee to get one that you're absolutely going to love. But yeah, Andrew, he was there in the pub, definitely the pub, just making friends. He'd never had friends before. And they're pretty good, aren't they? It's pretty nice having friends, isn't it? Do you remember what that's like? Yeah, I'm seeing nods. Fantastic. Yeah. Do you know, within about 4 weeks, Andrew was sitting up at a table in the pub with loads of these friends, these new friends, all around the table with him, just talking normally and joking and laughing. In fact, one of his friends, one of his new friends, said to everybody at the table, "Hey, you know, something really weird happened to me the other day when I was passing through the forest, right? I heard this noise. It were a little bit like an owl, and a little bit like a fox, but kind of like a cross between the two, like." And when Andrew heard this, well, he couldn't help himself. He just found the words spilling out of his mouth before he could stop them. He said, "You think that's weird? I'll tell you something that's weird, right? About a month ago, I was walking through the forest. Yeah, there was a full moon shining to show me the way, just down the long straight path through the forest. And as I started walking, I suddenly heard footsteps behind me going, tap, tap, tap. So I looked round and I saw, uh-oh. There was Andrew again, telling stories. Now that he'd started, he couldn't stop. He told all sorts of stories that night. And just like at the beginning of this story, Andrew's stories were going on and 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 on. And on and on and on and on until everybody there in the pub, just like everybody here in the Zoom room, had fallen asleep. Even the lady who was pulling drinks at the bar had fallen asleep. And Andrew felt brilliant. Oh, he was so happy. He was so full of rapture. Telling stories again, it made him feel marvelous. Oh, telling stories was so much better than having friends. Definitely. Ask any storyteller, they'll tell you that. Yeah. Oh, he felt so happy. Of course, since everybody had fallen asleep, it was probably time for him to go home. So Andrew got up and he left the pub. There was the full moon up there in the sky, giving him a nice light to walk home by down that long straight path through the forest. And as he started walking through the trees, he heard behind him, do you think that's the end of the story? No. A couple of yeses. Maybe some people are nodding because they want it to be the end of the story. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe Andrew Coffrey is still there in the middle of a forest somewhere, just telling the same story over and over again to the ghost of David Patrick. I'm hoping I never find out. But now it looks like we've got a Zoom room full of people who are really up for a good story. If you've stayed here through the last one, then you probably are up for a good story. And that means I think you deserve to have a story that you are definitely going to love. Which gives me a problem, because there are some faces out there that I recognize. Hi, faces that I recognize. But there are also a few that I don't think I've ever seen before. So hi, faces that I've never seen before. And I want this to be a story that all of you are really going to love. Now, obviously, if we weren't in a Zoom room, I'd be able to do this by talking to you. That's a lot trickier to do here online because of lags and echoes and things. So we're going to try something a little bit different. Okay, Lucy, a Wood. Oh, hang on a minute. We've got 2 videos for Lucy Wood, haven't we? One of which has a face in it. So if you're on Lucy Wood's camera, can you just wave at me? Excellent. Right. Okay. Right. So I know that we've got everybody. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Okay. I'm going to give you a choice of 2 kinds of story. And for one of them, I'm going to ask you to move to your right. Okay. So that you go to the right of your screen. So just to practice, could you all now shuffle to the right of your camera right now to get right to the edge of your camera screen? Yeah, most people are going the same way. Well done, Hitcham. You're where I expect you to be. Oh, Bella and Anita, I'm not sure you're going to the right way. I don't know whether maybe your camera's reversed, perhaps. But excellent. Okay. Oh, Gary, you're the wrong side as well. Yeah, I don't know. Again, maybe it's your camera switching round. If that's the case, you have to think that your right is your left. Everybody else, though, you were absolutely right. Okay, so you're on the right side. Okay, now, so yeah, I'm going to give you 2 options. One will have you move to the right. The other one is going to need you to move to the left of your camera. So again, let's just test we can do that. Go to the left of your camera. Yes, okay. That's it. Yeah, head to the left of your camera. Zuhair as well. Apologies if I've pronounced it wrong. Can you go to the left of your camera for a moment? Excellent. Fantastic. Right, okay. So this is going to work. I'm excited now. Okay, right. So here we go. I'm going to give you a choice, and I want you to go to the side of the screen for the choice that you want. Okay. So let's see. The first choice I'm going to give you is going to be between adventure or something clever. Okay. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be adventure or clever. So if you would like to have some adventure, head over to the right side of your screen. And if you would like something clever, head over to the left side of your screen. And I do appreciate that there are 2 people in some cameras. It's okay if you want to go to different sides, that's fine. But I'm expecting you to go over to the right if you're wanting adventure, and over to the left if you're wanting clever. And stay there, okay, because I'm quickly going to do a count. Okay, so for adventure, we've got okay, and for clever, right, clever's easier because I don't think we've got so many. Mike, are you for clever?
I was for adventure. Am I going the
wrong
way?
Oh, your camera's flipped as well then. Abdu, were you for adventure or clever? Or just press your space bar so you can unmute yourself to tell me.
I think I'm in the wrong side. I went for the adventure, so I have to be here.
Oh, you wanted adventure as well. Okay.
So, sorry.
No, that's fine. Stephanie, you were wanting clever? Oh.
I don't mind. I just want to hear one of your stories.
but were you wanting clever? Were you?
I wanted clever.
You were.
I wanted clever. But I'd be really happy with adventure if that's what most people would like.
Oh, that's very, very Libran of you. And Jackie, and were you wanting clever?
Yes.
You were. Okay, your camera's flipped as well. That confused me. So, it looks then like I've got just 3 wanting clever. That's Stephanie and the 2 faces in Jackie's camera. So if there's anybody else who really wanted clever, can you just wave at me desperately? No? Okay, so Stephanie and Jackie and Mini Jackie, or possibly Maxi Jackie, I'm not sure. So we're going to have an adventure. Stephanie, I know you said you're okay with that, but the thing is, I want you to really, really love the story too. So I'm going to ask for you to help us decide what kind of adventure this is going to be. Okay. Now, this could be an adventure that is funny.
You want a funny adventure?
Or wait for it. It could be an adventure full of danger. Okay, that's your choice. Okay, you can have funny or we can have danger. Now, again, because there are 3 of you, I'm going to ask you to move to different sides of your screen. And I've worked out by now, Jackie and Mini Jackie, that you have a flipped screen. So move to your right, because otherwise I'll get confused. So go to your right if you want funny, and go to the left of your camera if you want danger. Okay, so we've got both the Jackies for danger. Is that right? And we've got Stephanie for danger. Yeah? Are you sure? Because you moved at the last minute there. Definitely sure? Okay, so we're going for a dangerous adventure. Okie dokie. And do you know what? Bianca, I have noticed that you left me a little comment in the chat saying that you wanted a story about knights. How serendipitous is that? That all of the Zoom hive minds that we've got right here, right now, have pretty much asked for exactly the same thing, a dangerous adventure. And of course, that means we can have a dangerous adventure with knights. And oh, I'm so excited about telling you this story now. I know that you are going to love it because this is exactly the story that you wanted. And it's a story about, well, it's a story about a boy, about the same size as the young man you've got next to you there, Bianca, actually. His name was Gareth. And at the start of this story, Gareth was not a knight. He actually worked in the kitchens, which meant that he spent most of every day shoveling pig poo. Because, of course, they had pigs in the kitchens. They had to feed them to get nice and fat, to give them enough bacon and so on. And that meant that, yeah, there in the kitchen, in a castle kitchen, you would have plenty of pig poo. So it was Gareth's job to get the pig poo and fling it over the other side out of the castle. Pick up the pig poo, fling it out of the castle. Oh, sorry if I caught any of you there. So Gareth was there working in the kitchen, but he didn't want to be doing that all of his life. Of course, he would watch as the other members of the kitchen, the chefs and the waiters, would carry the food out to the big round table there in Camelot. And he would see all of the other knights. They would be dressed up in all of their finery, their armor, their coats, their cloaks. And they would be having a whale of a time sharing stories of their various quests, the people that they met, the beasts that they fought. Gareth really wished he could be a knight just like them. Like I see on some of your faces, you probably wish that you could be a knight too. I mean, it would be fantastic, wouldn't it, to be riding out on a horse? Who wouldn't love to ride out on a horse with all of that armor, all of the shiny, what's it called, regalia, with your own coat of arms? What sort of coats of arms would you have? I mean, you'd probably have some sort of animal. What animal would you choose to have on your shield?
Lion.
Oh, lion came. Oh, was that from you, Bianca, was it? Yeah.
Bianca.
Yeah, if you've chosen, just press your space bar and that will temporarily unmute you so you can shout your animal at me, just like Bianca did.
Dragon!
Oh, wow. Okay, so that was a very loud shout out from Bella there. A dragon on your shield. Only one? Yeah, just one dragon, but a big one. Yeah. Do you know who else had a dragon on their shield? King Arthur. King Arthur had a dragon on his shield. So you must have royal blood in you if you've got a dragon on your shield as well. Yeah, lions, of course, would probably mean that you came from somewhere in Africa, I imagine, just like most of the footballers in the English football team. Any other animal suggestions?
Oh, me.
Yeah, what have you got, Jackie? Or Mini Jackie?
A unicorn.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. I don't think I've seen a knight with a unicorn on their shield before. That would be very original. That would make you extra special. Yeah, fantastic. You'd have the protection of unicorns behind you. And if you've ever seen a film called Stardust, have you seen Stardust? You have to see that film. It's my favorite film, honestly, and it shows you just how important unicorns are. Anyway, yes, Gareth, just like you, wanted to be sat around the round table with his own shield. He'd probably have a uni dragon with a mane or something, because he was that excited by all of the thoughts that went through his head looking at the knights around that table. He wished he could be any one of them, but he was there in the kitchen, shoveling pig poo backwards and forwards. It's probably impossible for a boy in his position to ever be at the round table. However, and that's a good word for storytellers to use, isn't it? You know something's going to happen when they say, however. At the start of this story, a girl came running in to the great court of King Arthur's castle there in Camelot, and she looked desperate. She was wearing the clothes of a maid, and she had tears running down her face. And because she was a damsel in distress, okay, she was a maid, but she was still a damsel, all of the knights around the table stopped and turned to hear what she had to say. But the maid only spoke when she knew she had King Arthur's attention. And she said, "Please, please, can I have the help of one of your brave knights to come and rescue my lady? She has been trapped in her tower by none other than the Red Knight. The Red Knight will only let her go if he is beaten in a joust. I know all of you here at the round table, you are fantastic at jousting. I mean, it's what you do for fun, isn't it? Grabbing your big long lances and charging at each other with your horses to try and knock each other off down. You do it for sport, but the Red Knight, he will do it to death. And he will only let my lady go if someone can kill him in a joust." Well, as soon as this young lady had said that, all of the knights around the table, they were puffing up their chests, just like I can see some of you doing. Yes, Hitcham, I saw you. And they were starting to nudge each other, going, "Oh, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could go and beat that Red Knight for you. Yeah, I'll choose me, King. Yeah, Your Majesty, choose me. I'll go out. I'll do it. Yeah." And the king looked around at the table. He saw all of his really eager knights, and it filled him up with pride. And so he said to the maid, "Tell me, dear maid, what is your name?" And the girl replied, "My name's Lucy." And King Arthur replied, "Well, Lucy, you can see you have plenty of willing volunteers around the table. Pick whomever you choose to go and rescue your lady." And this sent a wave of relief through Lucy. Lucy said, "Oh, thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so happy that all of your knights are so keen because, well, you see, the Red Knight, he's already managed to kill about 30 knights and he's put all of their heads on spikes. So we really need another knight to come and have a go. Who shall I pick?" But really interestingly, after Lucy had said that last few sentences there, suddenly all of the knights were beginning to shrink in their chairs, again, a bit like Hitcham's doing, and get as small as possible and starting to nudge each other, saying something different. They were saying, "Yeah, you go, you could do it. Yeah, you go, you do it. And now that pride that King Arthur had felt was dissipating into disappointment. He felt so embarrassed. He looked around the table at all of his knights and couldn't believe the shame that they were bringing on Camelot. But just then, he heard a little voice from out in the direction of the kitchen saying, I'll do it. It was, of course, the voice of Gareth, the kitchen boy. And Arthur asked him, you will undertake this quest to rescue the lady of this young maid, Lucy, here? And Gareth stepped forward and nodded and said, yeah, I'll do it. Well, of course, Gareth couldn't go on this quest without being a knight. So King Arthur drew his magical sword Excalibur right there and then and made Gareth a knight. And he commanded the servants there in Camelot to fetch a horse for Gareth, fetch some armor for him, fetch a shield that had on it a fierce female osprey and an eagle and a flamingo, and also the unicorn and the lion and the dragon, because they knew that Gareth would need all the help he could get. And then Gareth was ready with his shield, with a lance, with a horse, with all that armor. And Lucy was running off away from the castle. So Gareth found himself having to steer his horse into a gallop, just to steer isn't the right word there, is it? You can tell how good I am with horses. Spur, that's the word I was going for. Spur his horse into a gallop to chase after Lucy, calling, wait, wait, my lady. But Lucy, when he finally caught up with her, because she was only on her 2 legs, turned around and said, I am not your lady. Besides, you are not a knight. You're not going to be able to rescue my lady. Do you know what? We're soon going to be at the bridge, and the Blue Knight guards the bridge. He's going to challenge you to a joust, and I bet you won't even get across the bridge. Well, just as Lucy had said, they soon came to the bridge, and sure enough, the Blue Knight stepped out from beside the bridge. He was called the Blue Knight because his armor was blue, his shield was blue, had a blue flamingo on it. His lance was blue, even his horse was blue. And as Lucy had predicted, the Blue Knight challenged Sir Gareth to a joust. So the 2 knights faced each other on their horses, and we need to kind of get a gallop going. So anybody got any coconuts? No, didn't bring your coconuts along? Never mind. Well, take your hands anyway. They'll do for now. And you can do this one of 2 ways. You can either go, or you can do it on your legs, which is, I think, a little bit easier going. Okay. So I can see some of you have got started at this. What we're going to do, is we're going to try it all at once, but we want to start slowly because they start slow. Oh, we do have something that's a little bit like a coconut. What's that? A cup and a cup and a fox, by the looks of it. Don't worry, no animals were harmed in the making of this story. Fantastic. Okay, so whether you're using your hands or a fox, make sure that you are ready to start your clapping. What I'm going to do is I am going to give you the speed with my hands. Okay, so watch my hands. When my hands are together like this, you want to be going, well, you don't want to be moving at all, basically. And then as my hands slowly come apart, you want to be galloping nice and slow. And as I get really wide, you want to be going faster and faster and faster. Okay, are you ready? I'm getting nods here in Zoom. If you're on YouTube or something, or worldstorytellingcafe.com, come join us in here in Zoom, and then I'll be able to see you as well. Here we go. It started to circle. They picked up their pace. Then the Blue Knight spurred his horse forward, and Sir Gareth spurred his forward. They were racing towards each other, and then the Blue Knight fell from his horse. Gareth jumped down from his horse, pulled out his sword, pointed it right at the Blue Knight's neck, and said, I could kill you, or I could let you go, if my lady desires it. Well, of course, Lucy was watching all of this, and she just said, I am not your lady. Let him go. And so Sir Gareth said, all right, I will let you go on 2 conditions. First, you must give me your armor, your horse, your shield, and your lance. And secondly, you must go back to Camelot and become a knight of the Round Table. Well, it was that or lose his head, really, wasn't it? So the Blue Knight very quickly agreed, and he gave Gareth his armor, his horse, his lance, and his shield, and then he went off to Camelot, where I've heard stories that say he became one of the best knights that Camelot had ever seen. Gareth, though, put on the blue armor. He got onto the blue horse. He picked up the blue shield and the blue lance, and he started chasing after Lucy again, because once again, she'd gone off all by herself. So he had to spur his horse into a gallop to catch up, saying, wait, wait, my lady. And Lucy turned around and said, I am not your lady. You are not a knight. You might think that you are because you got rid of the Blue Knight, but you still stink just like a kitchen boy. And you know, we're soon going to be going through a glade. That's where the Green Knight lives. And he's going to challenge you to a joust before you can get to the other side. I bet he's going to stop you easy. As they got to the glade, what Lucy had said came true. A Green Knight stepped out from the shadows and challenged Sir Gareth to a joust. So get your hands and or your laps and or your cups and your foxes ready. The 2 knights faced each other. They slowly began to circle. They picked up their pace. Then the Green Knight spurred his horse forward. Sir Gareth spurred his forward. They raced towards each other, and then the Green Knight fell from his horse. Gareth jumped down from his horse, pulled out his sword, pointed it straight at the Green Knight's neck and said, I could kill you, or I could spare you if my lady desires it. And Lucy, who had been watching, said, I am not your lady. Oh, let him go. So Gareth turned back to the Green Knight and said, all right, I will let you go on 2 conditions. 1, you must give me your armor, your horse, your lance, and your shield. And 2, you must go back to Camelot and swear an oath of allegiance to King Arthur and join the Knights of the Round Table. And again, it was that or have his head chopped off. So the Green Knight very happily gave his armor, his horse, his lance, and his shield to Gareth and went riding off back on the blue horse to Camelot, where he joined the Knights of the Round Table, and I've heard stories that say became one of the best knights there. But Gareth plopped on the green armor, got on the back of the green horse, picked up the green lance, and had to chase after Lucy again because off she'd gone. So he spurred his horse into a gallop, racing after her, saying, wait, wait, my lady. And Lucy turned round and said, I am not your lady. You might think because you've got rid of 2 knights now that you're a big, brave knight, but you're still just a stinky kitchen boy. When we get to the mountain, you're going to meet the White Knight, and he's going to beat you easy. As they approached the mountains, sure enough, out from the rocks stepped the White Knight, so called because he had white armor, a white shield, a white horse, and a white lance. And as Lucy had predicted, the White Knight challenged Sir Gareth to a joust. Are you ready? The two knights faced each other and slowly began to circle. Then they picked up their pace. Then Gareth spurred his horse into a charge first this time, and the White Knight did the same, and they were racing towards each other, and then the White Knight fell down from his horse. And Gareth jumped down from his horse, pointed his sword right at the White Knight's throat and said, "I could kill you, or I could let you go, if my lady desires it." To which Lucy, who'd been watching the whole thing, said, "I am not your lady. Let him go." So Gareth said to the White Knight, "All right, I will let you go on 2 conditions. 1, you must give me your armor, your horse, your lance, and your shield. And 2, you must go and swear an oath of allegiance to King Arthur and join the Knights of the Round Table." And well, what would you do? Would you like to get your head chopped off or go and become a knight of the Round Table? Yeah, I thought so. Off went the White Knight, and in fact, I'm told he became one of the best knights there at the Round Table. And Sir Gareth put on the white armor, picked up the white shield, the white lance, got on the back of the white horse, and Lucy was right there in front of him with a very worried expression on her face. And she said, "All right, over the other side of this mountain is the camp of the Red Knight and the tower where he's trapped my lady. If you go there, he's going to beat you. He's beaten all these other knights, but I do know a secret that might give you an advantage. The Red Knight gets his power from the sun. So if you wait until the sun goes down, he will be weaker. Then that's when you should challenge him to a joust. That's when you might stand a chance." Gareth crossed over the mountain, and as he looked down at the camp of the Red Knight, he saw all of those sticks with heads of knights on them, looking a bit like this. And seeing them there filled Gareth up with such fury. Those knights needed to be avenged. This wasn't just about rescuing a lady anymore. This was about doing something for all those poor knights who had been slain so mercilessly. And even though the sun was high in the sky, Gareth let his anger get the better of him. He just went straight down there into the camp of the Red Knight and called out to the Red Knight to leave his tent, desperately challenging him to a joust. And the Red Knight came out from his tent and looked down at Gareth and said, "All right, boy, let's have some fun." Well now, the Red Knight got into his armor, which was all red, sat on his horse, which was all red, picked up his lance, which was all red, and picked up his shield, which was mostly red except for a gold trim. And then the two knights faced each other across the field. You all ready? The horses began trotting slowly in a circle around each other, gradually picking up their speed. And then the Red Knight spurred his horse forward. Sir Gareth spurred his horse forward. They charged towards each other, and Gareth fell from his horse. The Red Knight jumped down from his horse, drew his sword, and got ready to lop off Gareth's head. But in that moment, Gareth drew his sword and blocked it. And so began a sword fight, probably the longest sword fight in the whole of Arthurian legend, as the sun moved across the sky and the shadows danced around them. The two knights fought, sparks flying out from their blades. Gareth was growing weaker and weaker and weaker, but he held in there just in time for the sun to head over the horizon, at which point the Red Knight staggered. Gareth managed to knock his sword out from his hands, jumped on top of him, pointed his sword at the Red Knight's neck, and said, "I could kill you now. I should kill you now. But I could let you go. If my lady desires it." And Lucy, who had been watching the whole thing, said, "Let him go." So Gareth turned back to the Red Knight and said, "All right, I will let you go on two conditions. One, you give me the keys to the tower. And two, you head back to Camelot and swear an oath of allegiance to King Arthur and join the Knights of the Round Table." Well, the Red Knight quite liked his head as well. So he did just that. He rode all the way back to Camelot and, I'm told, became one of the best knights of the Round Table. Gareth, though, took the keys, went to the tower, went right to the top of the tower, which of course was where the lady had been kept imprisoned. And, well, looking at your faces here in the Zoom room, I know you know exactly how this story is going to end. You know how these sorts of stories end. The knight rescues the lady, and of course that means they get married and they live happily ever after. Which is, I suppose, what the lady was expecting as well. But when Gareth and Lucy came into her room to rescue her, the lady looked at how Gareth was looking at Lucy, and she noticed the little glances that Lucy was giving to Gareth. And she said, "Thank you so much for rescuing me, but do you know what? I've been trapped in this tower for so long now. I'd quite like to travel the world. I'd quite like to go to places like Romania and Edinburgh and Marrakesh and maybe Liverpool. So I think I'm going to go on a bit of a journey. But of course, if I do leave, I'm going to need a brave knight to look after my lands while I'm gone. And it wouldn't be wise for him to do it by himself. He would have to be a married knight with a lady with him. Oh, that's an idea. Why don't you two get married? How does that sound?" And you know what? Gareth and Lucy quite liked that idea. So that's exactly what happened. Sir Gareth married Lucy, and the two of them got to stay in that lady's land, looking after it, with Sir Gareth heading back to Camelot every so often to join in a few other Arthurian legends that I'm sure you'll be able to find if you do your own little research. And then maybe we can have you here at the World Storytelling Cafe sometime in the future, sharing another one of Sir Gareth's stories, or any one of the Arthurian legends for that matter. But suffice it to say that Sir Gareth and Lucy lived pretty happily for the rest of their
Hi.
There you are, folks. Did you enjoy that story? I'm getting nods here in the Zoom room. I'm hearing a few claps from people whose video mic have thought to turn on. There we are. I hope that means you appreciate the story, which has been passed down through so many voices, not just mine, It's been passed down through many, many voices. I think I first heard it from a voice here in Cambridgeshire, where I'm from, that belonged to Anna French. But I know that story has been told by many, many more voices. And now, of course, it can be told by yours. Please do go and share that story with as many people as you can, because then, well, you'll be doing two things. First of all, you'll be helping that story to stay alive. But secondly, you'll be making history. You will be making a part of the future, because I can tell you, if you tell that story, someone else somewhere in a few hundred years' time will be telling the story as well. So thank you in advance for sharing that story onwards. And of course, you can do that with the story of Andrew Coffrey as well, if you caught that one right at the start. Right now, though, I think we're at that beautiful moment in these little cafe gatherings where we get to just have a chat. So if you are here in the Zoom room and you're able, do please stick around. Cheerio, Gary. I know you've got to disappear for dinner. I imagine I'm going to have to do that fairly soon. But thank you ever so much for joining us, Gary. Look forward to seeing you back and telling and playing and singing here at worldstorytellingcafe.com. Folks, make sure you look out for that. When are you on, Gary?
Sunday night at 6 o'clock with my friend Ian Douglas. We're going to try a double act.
Excellent. That's a double act from Gary Bridgens and Ian Douglas, Sunday at 6 p.m, which was actually the slot that I was originally booked for, which is great because it means I know I'm free. So I can be there to join you, Gary and Ian. I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be very interesting because I'm in Cumbria and Ian's in Stoke. It's a very social distancing aware double act.
It's magic, isn't it?
Thank you, Chip. I do have to go. Thank you. I enjoyed that very much. Cheers.
Cheerio, Gary. Ciao.
Bye. Bye, Gary.
Bye.
Oh, you're getting lots of Cheerios there, Gary. Yeah, if you're still here, then you are welcome to chip in now, no pun intended, with any questions or anything that you'd like to add, or any stories that you've got to tell. I love hearing stories if anyone's got something to tell. I'm hearing lots of rustling. I think that means people have unmuted their microphones, so maybe they're itching to say something. Stephanie, your microphone's unmuted. What would you like to say?
This is Fiona from Cambridge.
Hello, Fiona.
Hello.
You're in Cambridge?
Yes.
Are you really?
Yes.
She came with John. No, she saw you at Cambridge. She went with John. She's my daughter.
Oh, I see. I see.
Your place at camp.
Sorry, say that again because I missed you. What was it?
I saved you your entire spot at camp.
You saved my entire spot at the Cambridge Folk Festival?
Yeah, so John didn't put something over it. So you could
that was you, was it?
Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. I think I did thank you at the time, didn't I?
Yes, well, she grew up. Today's her final day of senior school. Scary how time goes.
Oh, blooming heck. Do you know what? I'm starting to remember what you looked like back then as well. You do actually look a whole lot different to how I remember you. You've got like height and everything. It's scary. Lovely to see. Lovely to see you again.
I don't have much height.
Oh, I can see a cat has joined me in the Zoom room. Everybody just wave to Lucy's cat for a moment. Ah, waving a tail back at us. Jackie, you had your microphone unmuted for a moment there. Was there something you wanted to say?
Is there a God? No, it was an accident. I didn't mean to. I think I was forced to have my microphone unmuted.
It's a beautiful question though. We could talk for hours on that, couldn't we? But we'll probably be straying into the territory of lots of other cafe.coms if we do that. And of course, this is a storytelling cafe.com. There are plenty of gods in the storytelling world, obviously. There are all of the ancient gods. There are some new gods too. And we know that the gods have many of the best stories. You all know Thor, do you? You know Thor? Yeah. Oh, hello, Stephanie's dog. Yeah, well, do you know the story where who said no? Thor's the one with the big hammer that makes the thunderclap. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's getting a few people nodding now. Yeah. Have you heard the story where he had dressed up as a woman to go and get his hammer back from the giants? Yeah, I'm getting thumbs up from that. I'm getting scrunched up faces from people like Bella and.
In year 2, my class did an assembly and we did it on that story.
It's a brilliant story, isn't it?
Thor, weren't you?
No, I think I was Loki.
Oh, she was Loki.
Were you? Loki's great. He's a great character in that story. I like him because it's his idea, isn't it, to get Thor dressing up as a woman, but he doesn't expect. I don't know how your school did it, but when I hear that story and when I tell that story, Loki is usually really, really happy because he comes up with this brilliant idea for Thor to get dressed up as a woman, and then he gets told that he's got to dress up as a woman as well to go with Thor as Thor's maid. Is that what you did? Yeah, he's not so happy about that. But it's a great story. I absolutely love it. There are other, the Greek gods have some fantastic stories as well. Have you heard some of the stories of the Greek gods? Yeah. Trying to think of one of my favorite Greek god stories. Do you know what? Now I think of it, most of my favorite Greek stories are stories with people like Hercules or Theseus or Perseus or Jason. And they're not actually gods. They're kind of little, kind of half gods. Hercules was half a god. Who else? Achilles, he as well was half a god. Maybe you have to be half god to have the best stories. Any of you half gods? We know Minnie Jackie is because, of course, she's got that unicorn. And we know Bella is because she's got a dragon on her shield, and everybody knows that royalty is descended from gods. So that's brilliant that we've got royalties. We've got true deities joining us here in the Zoom room right now. Cool. Mike. Don't think I haven't noticed that your microphone's unmuted. Is there anything you want to say?
Oh, well, I was shouting at Achilles, but you couldn't hear.
Oh, really? I couldn't hear at all. Was your microphone unmuted at that point?
I'm not sure. I think
it was probably me just going on and on and on. I was turning into a bit of an Andrew Coffrey, wasn't I? Yeah. But there is a reason why I'm doing that, though, folks. It's because over on theworldstorytellingcafe.com, the only face they can see is mine. So even if you ask a question, I think they'll hear your voice, but they'll still only see my face. One way around this is that when you ask your question, I try and mime along, so it looks like I'm saying the same words that you're saying, which we can have a go at. I think we did that last time. But if you've got something that you want to say or ask, do please unmute your microphone and you'll have the chance. Don't be afraid that your face is going to be streamed live on YouTube, because it really won't. It'll just be my face and my lips moving to try and match your voice. So anyone else got anything they want to throw out there? Just you at the moment, Mike.
Okay.
What's your favourite Achilles story?
I was just going to ask if Luca wanted to say hello. I know Luca enjoyed the story about the night.
Hello.
Oh, okay, we got Luca. Okay, Luca, I'm going to try and match your voice with my lips. So you just go ahead and talk.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Chip.
Oh, sorry. Hi. I was so busy being you, I forgot to say hi back.
I enjoyed your story.
I enjoyed your story.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you so much for being here. Have you got a story that you can share back?
It's a bit hard for him to talk in English.
I see. Okay.
So I was translating all the time.
You're in Romania, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are there any great Romanian stories that you know of?
Yes, there are a lot of Romanian stories that are very great. Maybe sometime I will tell one.
Excellent. Well, we would love to have you here at the worldstorytellingcafe.com if you do. I'm trying to think whether I know any Romanian stories. Do you know, I think the only ones I know are those that have already been told by Romanian storytellers here at the worldstorytellingcafe.com, and I would hate to tread on their toes. So make sure you look them out. My mind's gone blank. Who are your storytellers out there?
Ours?
Mike, who have we got in Romania?
Oh, we have only one. Georgina Elena Popan.
Yeah, that's right. It's Georgina. I'm so sorry for forgetting your name. But Georgina. Oh, and John, apparently.
And we have, I think we have at least one more next week, actually.
Ooh, oh, that's exciting. Who are they?
It's a secret at the moment, but we...
Oh, okay. It's a secret at the moment. I don't think...
Only Mike and Julio knows.
I don't think I've heard John. What's John's last name, Julio?
Rowe.
John Rowe. He's half Romanian now.
Oh, is he?
Oh,
I didn't. You say he's half Romanian now?
John has a house in Romania and he's collecting Romanian stories.
I see. John's collecting Romanian stories. Ah, okay. In that case, obviously, I know who John is. I know very well who John is. John sadly can't be with us today because he had a cycling accident and he's getting looked after very well by the NHS, who, yeah, we were applauding for them last night here in the UK. I just out of interest, because we don't get to find out all the time what's going on in the rest of the world. Are you folks clapping for your health services as well? Are you doing a public applause for your health services? Yeah, I can see you nodding up in Scotland. No? Oh, well then, Zuha, you need to lead it. You need to pick an evening. Thursday evening tends to be a good one. We do it around about, I think it's 8 o'clock here, isn't it? Yeah, I'm getting nods from those who are here in the UK. Just head out and get a few friends on Facebook and Twitter joining you, and friends down the street, because they are working really, really hard at the moment to try and get us to a situation where we can share stories, not just like this, because this is wonderful. I think we're going to keep on doing this, but also in places like cafes and theatres and schools and streets again, so that it's a little bit easier for us to hear each other without having to press a button, which is a little bit too much like Star Trek for my liking. So yeah, try that. And I think there are other people who deserve applauses as well. We could certainly clap everybody who is working in the supermarkets right now. Don't you think they're great? I think they're having to go out into work every single day to make sure that the rest of us can keep getting food. I think they're absolutely fantastic. If you have anyone in your family or friends who works at a supermarket, make sure you give them a call and give them a proper clap and a slap on the back.
Hot off the press, Chip, they're saying that next Thursday may be the last clap that we have for a while. It'll be week 10. So the lady...
what's next? Oh, you could set the table.
So the lady who instigated the clap is saying that next week should be the last one for a while.
Ah, I see. Okie dokie. So sorry, we got another voice come in there. I love the idea that instead of clapping at Thursday at 8 o'clock for the NHS, we could set the table at 8 o'clock for the NHS instead. I think whether you're clapping or not, making sure that you keep them in mind is very important. Praying for them, and sending positive energies, mental hugs, anything that you can do. And certainly if you have friends who are doing that kind of work, going out to the supermarkets, going out to farms, or taking deliveries around, make sure you let them know how wonderful they are. Because storytellers like me, we've been telling stories about heroes like knights and storytellers and fairies and spiders and all sorts of wonderful creatures and people. But what we're learning right now is that the real heroes are folks just like you. And in exactly the same way as stories don't exist without you, neither does anybody else. You are absolutely essential for everybody else to live and survive in this world. So don't ever forget it. That is wonderfully long hair you've got there, Bella. I hope you holding up a finger there wasn't your way of saying, this is where I want you to cut it. No, you've got to keep that hair. Keep it for as long as you can. Right, I am hearing noises from downstairs saying that a table is being set. Probably more accurately, trays are being put out and dinner is being put on them because it's Friday night. We like to watch telly with our food on a Friday night. So I think I'm going to have to disappear very soon. Thank you to all of you, because remember, there could have been none of this without you. And that goes for you watching this at theworldstorytellingcafe.com as well. Whether you have been watching it live or whether you're watching it sometime in the future. Goodness, that's a thought, isn't it? I could still be telling the exact same stories 100 years in the future. I've kind of become Andrew Coffrey. Ugh. Anyway, thank you again ever so much for joining me. It's been lovely seeing your smiley faces here in the Zoom room, and I hope I get to share stories with you again before too long. So, ciao, folks. See you around.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye. Ciao. I'm not going to be able to do all of your voices at the same time.
Thanks, bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here. Ciao.
Thank you.